America's Got Talent Extreme. So the stunt is that this guy is suspended by a rope. There are two cars. The two cars are going to come in and he's going to attempt to get out of a straitjacket and then, hopefully avoid the cars. Cutting to the chase, he doesn't get out. And so if you're sensitive to some pretty intense video, please don't watch. Little disclaimer. But let's watch and see what happens. There he is. We see the two cars. He's dangling. They release the cars, and so he was pulled up for a moment. So you see him actually levitate for a second. And it just with some awful perfect timing, the cars collided, crushing him. And then of course there's the explosion. Okay. All right, so in high stakes, in the high stakes world of entertainment, this stuff does really well. And America's Got Talent, of course, is known for just like really extravagant things. And so they have, of course, this show, AGT Extreme, which is dedicated to more of this kind of content. And so in this recent event, this is Stuntman Jonathan Goodwin. And so he basically was on the show. He did this stunt, and now he's suing NBC. And I guess what happened and where he's at right now is that he was catastrophically injured. And I believe he's saying he's now a paraplegic.
It is just horrible what has happened to him. He had a dislocated spinal cord. He lost a kidney, third-degree burns, fractures to his legs, ribs, and shoulders. And yeah, it's when I saw this story, I was even just like reluctant to even want to see the footage of it because I could just imagine what it was, and that footage is pretty extreme. These shows always blow me away. What people will do, I don't want to say what they'll do for fame, but what they'll do for fame and what they kind of risk their lives for entertainment. It's I'm always just kind of blown away. And I think that AGT does have some kind of responsibility to this guy for sure, because he's making accusations that, they set up the stunt, they were in charge of it, and, proper safety measures weren't. He survived.
Yeah,
But
and just to
proper, yeah.
clarify, he did survive. Now, what a part of what he's alleging is he goes, they were negligent in that they didn't run the stunt ahead of time with like a dummy, and there wasn't
Right.
adequately trained and or licensed, if applicable, professionals overseeing this. So, again, without seeing what he signed, I can guarantee you that he signed a release of
Right.
liability in
Oh,
order to participate. It was explained to him, and also he knew. That's the other piece here. Not
yeah.
not ever to place blame on, him as to say that he deserved this or anything like that is
No.
so beyond anything that I can even comprehend of where he's at now. And it's actually, this is 2 years
2
now
years, yeah.
that he's still suffering. He's saying mental, physical, emotional injuries,
No doubt,
and
no
his life has
doubt.
completely changed. But from the legal standpoint, if you are on a show and there is a risk, what if you don't get out of the straitjacket? That has to occur to someone. What if you don't get out? And so you sign a release of liability. So then does that hold up? And so sometimes where we can overcome contractual waivers of like, well, you said you were going to be on the show. And so, you said if you died, that your state wouldn't sue us. But if there's extreme negligence of you're like, cool, yes, I did sign it, but for example, maybe the lock that was on his jacket malfunctioned, maybe someone didn't check that, maybe there was something having to do more with gross negligence, in which case we can come in and be like, no, based on appropriate circumstances, there were the proper professionals, they'd run the tests, that he would have been okay. And so if I was representing him, that's probably, what I would say. Because at this point, the best that we can do for him is to try to get a huge insurance payout. There's probably
Yeah.
workers' compensation that's pretty common for these shows. And that, that can help to make hopefully this a little bit better, but it doesn't, you know?
No, and it's these risks that they do, and you talk about people, being held accountable. I mean, that Alec Baldwin Russ case is still going on, just doing proper checks with guns and just different things like that. And I mean, it's a little bit of a different situation, but it's the same idea. It's all for entertainment. They're putting AGT extreme, so they got to deliver on some kind of extreme. Now, this is like a stunt. This is a real stunt. This isn't like I don't know, like a Chris Angel doing some magic illusion where there's an illusion aspect to it where, the performer is obviously super safe. In competitions like these shows like this, where maybe there's, $1 million, or I don't even know what the GT prize is, or, whatever. But um, as far as when there's these cash prizes on the line, they feel the need to maybe look the other way for some safety things because they gotta win this competition. And I just think that, just the culture of that is very dangerous in itself. But I do think that AGT does bear some kind of responsibility for sure, even if he did sign a little waiver. And just for good kind of public perception, I think that they should be trying to going out of their way for this dude, and making announcements that they are stepping up their game even more. With I don't know, because they have to create a safe environment for people to, for contestants to even want to come on this show.
Yeah,
And this has
you
been brought
have,
up
I mean, you're
again.
giving not only written consent via, these waivers that you sign, but you also have informed consent. You know what you're doing,
Right.
you know the risks, and this
Right.
is what the show is. So, it's almost like if we're gonna just villainize the show and just be like, "Oh, the show, they're terrible people for doing this and putting people's lives at risk." Again,
Well,
there's 2
more
sides
based on
to
what
it.
he's alleging, as far as they set up the stunt, they gave him the thing that he has to, whatever that he has to do, and they weren't letting him do the proper safety things for show wise. That's what he was alleging. So I'm kind of going based on that, because AGT has yet to respond. So and I would like to hear what they have to say, what precautions they have, if they go, and this guy is just, he did some unsafe things and whatever. But either way, when there's that much money, that many eyes, and you're doing something live, you gotta have precautions. This is what he wants to do. I always think that people that do these wild things like parachute diver, jumpers and stuff, like our instructors and stuff like that, that are just literally just going hundreds and thousands of these jumps, or hang gliding or whatever a day, that's what they love. And people love this extreme adrenaline stuff, and more power to them. But I do like to see safety from professional companies and shows and productions. I don't know, crazy.
Yes. So I guess, where we can put this is with, Jonathan and his case, one thing we can say is that it's horrible what he's dealing with, but this is an interesting one, and I'm interested to see once NBC on behalf of AGT
Yeah.
responds, what they say and what position that they take. So be sure to subscribe, follow for more.